all right, fine. Let's sit down. We'll pull back some of our tariffs. You pull back some of your tariffs so we can sell.
A lot of the countries we're tariffing have no tariffs on us.
Some cars in Japan where they don't buy a lot of American cars, and maybe they'll chill out with some of the tariffs on that we charge them. I mean, that's the ideal. I'm not saying we're going to achieve that, but he's playing hardball real estate negotiation.
You know what I think is one of the problems, though, and these billionaires tend to say this. We've seen them quoted saying this, that America, should be able to withstand temporary pain. The problem is people living paycheck to paycheck and trying really hard to make ends meet. The people that are cutting the drugs in half in order to make it to the end of the month can't endure temporary pain the way a billionaire can do so. Right? The problem is that we're already suffering under very high grocery prices. It's one of the reasons that Donald Trump got elected, precisely about the egg prices. The eggs, by the way, some of which we are now having to import from some of these countries that he is now slapping tariffs on. And so it is so callous to say the art of the deal, he'll do this, he'll do that, because that's not going to happen in one day. That's not going to happen in 1 month.
Here's the thing, we don't know. We don't know.
It is remarkable how quickly the entire Republican machine went from Biden drove up the prices too high, we're going to bring him down, to actually everything's going to get way more expensive, but trust us, watch this kickflip. It took no time at all. It literally was like overnight, the shift. And the fact that so far they're getting away with it, like the fact that Trump is not currently at like 3% approval rating, is why we deserve to suffer as a country.
It could happen tomorrow. Japan could call him tomorrow and be like, let's sit down and negotiate.
But you know what? The likelihood that it happens by the way he did it is minimal, because he did it. It gives more people the desire to start to work together against us than to say, if he did it to 2 or 3 countries, maybe, but to do a sweeping tariff. I just said last segment, there are enemies like South Korea, Taiwan, and China starting to work together because of what Donald Trump is doing. That is not actually, you're helping them make deals, not make deals with us.
One of the other scenarios.
Media is so much more pro-Trump than 8 years ago. Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, like on every level, right? Zuckerberg has bent the knee. Meta is like explicitly pro-Trump. Google has done the same. They contributed money unprompted to Trump's inauguration fund, just as a symbol of fealty, right? Joe Rogan, obviously, massive media figure, no matter which way you want to slice it. Jeff Bezos, Amazon, obviously he's, doesn't really run social media the same way that like Zuckerberg does, but it's pretty insane that like Amazon, the largest distribution company in the world, pledged fealty. Tim Apple, yeah, to a lesser extent, but nonetheless to an extent. CNN CEO, they brought in a new CEO, and the new CEO was like, we're going to have more media that appeals to the right wing. We're going to shift to the right. And you see it even when you watch shows like this. The thing that f***s me up, man, is that in this program, CNN Newsnight, which we've been seeing a lot of clips of lately, usually the dynamic is you have 4 or 5 well-educated, I'm just going to say it because I'm not constrained by wokeness unlike you guys, black women or non-white women, people here who are not white men, we'll say, who are sane, and then you'll have one white guy whose job it is to be a partisan hack for Trump, who will defend Trump no matter what. And that's the dynamic. But the insane thing is, if this was Fox News, everyone here would be dunking on that white guy. Like if the positions were reversed, right? With the pocket liberal like they have in the 5, they would like mock them. But here, they have to keep pretending that these obviously dishonest, grinning, smirking freaks of nature are like actually here to participate in the conversation. Like they're actually having a talk with someone rather than like giving their spiel and then hitting a button on the back of an action figure whose job it is to respond with like 2 or 3 pre-baked statements. They shouldn't be taken seriously. I mean, they shouldn't be allowed in the program at all. I have like a crazy opinion on my part. I think that news organizations should not have broadcasters whose only job is to lie. It feels like a up like a trickster Fey game, you know? Like you can, there are two paths before you, guarded each by one who only tells lies and one who only tells the truth. Why? You're not this isn't the Lost Woods. This is CNN. You don't need to have the guy on here whose job it is to lie. That's not actually a necessary position. You need people to run the lights and sounds, and it's not a necessary job.
This is from the Journal in a pretty scathing op-ed tonight. This is the Wall Street Journal. They say that this is actually also opening the door to corruption. Mr. Trump,
you know what I want, by the way? I want a program like this, except the one conservative every time they bring on is a random guy. The prerequisite is that they not have any media connections at all. They have to be like, it's done by raffle. It's a regular guy. Conservatives are like, I'll defend Trump. I've got an idea. And they'll be given a fair briefing beforehand. You know, they'll be like, here are the talking points, right? Like, here's what we're going to discuss today. Here's what you're going to be given the opportunity to say, and give it your best shot, basically. And I want him to be treated fairly, by which I mean I want them to tear him apart, like just eviscerate him. Absolutely ruthless blood sports on CNN. You just reinvented Jubilee? No. Because Jubilee is exactly what I'm complaining about in this program. Jubilee is an artifice. It's a fake program designed to titillate by platforming people with bad ideas and performatively bad ideas. The motherfuckers who go up there on Jubilee with the bad ideas, you know that gay twink from LA? He's in every one. Why? He works for Jubilee. He doesn't believe the bad shit he says. He's just on there for the views. You need to get someone with no media connections, just some random West Virginian conservative up here to argue about how like Trump's tariffs are going to help us in the long term. And I'm not saying they start out by being vicious to the guy. I think they should treat him fairly. I'm just saying that fair treatment of a Trump supporter will inevitably lead to blood sports, or they kowtow.
Trump is saying that there will be no tariff exemptions, but watch that promise vanish as politicians, including Mr. Trump, see exemptions as a way to leverage campaign contributions from businesses. Liberation Day is buy another yacht day for the swamp. Ooh. The swamp that he's supposed to be draining.
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree with the premise of that argument as articulated. Could you levy tariff imports on, or rebates rather, on specific imports for certain industries? I think you can. That's one way to not have this compounding effect negatively on the consumer, particularly working class. I mean, these are things that you really have to think about and work through in a comprehensive way. But I do want to go back to the notion that I was mentioning earlier, and Ashley, you did touch on this, talking about Youngstown, Ohio, and how those jobs, they left, and it destroyed many towns and cities across the country. We do have to figure out, how do you revitalize those places?
But John,
and we're not discussing that.
Are those jobs, okay, Ashley was touching on this. Is it fair for politicians to say those jobs are going to come back in 2025 when we are on the cusp of AI, we are on the cusp of technological revolution, because Trump slapped some tariffs that benefit the auto industry in the short term?
No.
Why do we want manufacturing who wants to work in an assembly line? It is crazy that no one asked this question, by the way, because Democrats won't either. And I mean like all of them. AOC, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, none of them will say, oh, you want manufacturing jobs back? Sure, let's take a look at what manufacturing jobs look like today. Here's a live video feed from a security camera overlooking the suicide nets outside a factory in Beijing. Look at them down there. Look at them go. Oh, you want American-made like textiles? Okay, well, hey, let's go over to Bangladesh, all right? Let's take a look at what they're up to over there. You want American textile workers? We already have them. There are slaves. No, not slaves. There are sweatshop workers in LA. Seriously, right now, go to Union Station in Los Angeles and take the train up to Pasadena, the one that has an overline segment, okay? You will go over rows and rows of factories and mills east of Chinatown that are filled with sweatshop workers that are paid below minimum wage, and they're sewing clothes together. You can just check it out right now. Go inside. Go inside. We want that back? You want it?
So the economy, your point, we're the largest economy in the world. 70% of this economy is consumer spending. 70.
I think the idea is that people would have a factory job than no job. See, that's bullshit, because agricultural workers down in the South genuinely have had trouble getting Americans to move down there to pick crops. That's bullshit, man. The fact of the matter is, Americans have grown fat and lazy and arrogant, and they say they'll take any opportunity that comes their way, and they won't, and the math proves it. They don't want what that work looks like. And the American consumer does not want to pay the prices they would have to for all of our manufacturing being done here. The American dollar is just too strong. We benefit from the disparity in our currency's value and the value of currency over in China, Bangladesh, Taiwan, Vietnam, whatever. Well, not Taiwan really, but you know what I mean. Philippines, Vietnam. There are ways to build this out fairly, and I'm not saying there's no room for manufacturing here in America, but you can't bring all manufacturing back. Why would we? We already do a bunch of agricultural work here, and that's fine. It makes sense to produce food domestically. You know, you don't want to ship every morsel of food across the world before it makes its way into somebody's hungry mouth. Why the f do we need to be mining all of our iron ore here? Why the f does all of our steel production? What about our timber? Why would we produce all of our lumber domestically when Canada is to our north? Can't we benefit a little bit from national specialization while also advocating for robust job security? Like, nobody seems to have, nobody understands what this all leads to, what the vision is. You're between a rock and a hard place, okay? You can't manufacture everything or even close to everything here in the United States because people aren't going to pay those prices. In order to keep prices down, you would have to treat American textile workers as bad or worse than Bangladeshi textile workers. And nobody wants that. We just want to complain. We just want to complain. Oh, I want everything. I want to have the strongest economy in the world. I want to be able to import everything from everywhere for cheap. I want to be able to get my Chinese sweet treats. But I also want everyone to be able to afford a house and pay for the college of their children off of one income and a manufacturing job that hasn't existed for 60 years. I want all the manufacturing to be here, and I want all the domestic production to be here, but I don't want to have to pay American-made prices for it. I'm sorry, man. How privileged we are to even be able to argue like this. How good we must have it that we can go out there and be like, well, no, I want literally everything. If you want your money, take it. The bourgeoisie have it. Where'd the money go? Where'd the money go? It's up there. And in the Cayman Islands. You can fix all of this with redistributive. If we had the taxation and redistributive policies that you would get from some place like France or Germany or whatever, we could live like kings. If you had a wealth tax, a sane, sensible way, I'm not even talking like some policies I would support. I'm talking just like we did it like Norway or something. Every American could live like a king. It wouldn't take that much. We have an insane amount of money in this country. We could build the systems out like this. But no one wants to talk about it like that. No one wants to approach this as an inequality issue because no American wants to admit that they're poor. That's why we call people middle class, which is a made-up term. What the is a middle class? You're working class or you're not.
70% of all Americans are living from paycheck to paycheck. If you're making $100,000 a year, 50% of those are living from paycheck to paycheck. You're making $250,000 a year, a quarter of those are living from paycheck to paycheck. About 35% of those are living from paycheck to paycheck. You live in Manhattan, you make $100,000, it feels like $39,000. So that's the starting point. People got too much month at the end of their money. And most folks are living, before this, before all this happened, they were already stretched because of what happened with the pandemic and all the money that flowed in, which triggered inflation, which was very stubborn because it was $6 or $7 trillion flowing to the economy. The jobs that we're talking about were on their way out in the Industrial Revolution. It no longer makes any sense for us to manufacture.
Struggling on 250K amount. You can laugh at them, but it's also true. Keep in mind, like the entire point of the economy in America is to fleece you for everything that you have. There are people making $250,000 a year who are struggling. Not, by the way, because they're not making bad choices. They are making bad choices. The economy is designed to make people make bad choices. I'm not saying they're not being stupid with their money. I'm saying that the systems are designed to incentivize them being stupid with their money, So while I'm not going to go out there doing a candlelight vigil for people who are struggling on $250,000 or whatever, could probably be a little bit more sensible with how you spend your money. Rent might be half of that. I mean, yeah, if you have a family and you're living in like Manhattan or something, you could potentially be spending like 72K on rent alone, you know? 15K a month. Yeah, I mean, depending on far up. Sorry, not a month, a year on rent. How much is DoorDash? A decent amount. I'm sorry, but if you're making 250,000, you should be living below your means and having a great life. Okay, no wonder. I'm about to blow you the fuck out. Why the fuck don't you move to the Philippines? I bet you off of your income or the amount of money you've saved up right now, you could probably build a nest egg and then you could go live like a king for literally the rest of your life in a place where you would tap into a tiny fraction of your income every time you wanted to eat, like less than $1 to eat every day. It's always easy when you're the one thinking in a vacuum. When you're the one thinking like, oh, well, I would simply optimize my choices. When you don't even brush your teeth every night. People talk about other people as though you're like administrating the hyper efficient life of a sim. And then for your own life, it's like, well, yeah, I forgot to eat until 6:30 p.m. because like I forgot, Lamau. You know, I'm just saying. My bias here is towards the belief that all of this is more fucked up and more difficult than it needs to be.
Manufacture old line manufacturing in the U.S. is too expensive. That's why about 25% of our economy is tied to international trade. You can have manufacturing, but it's going to be high-tech manufacturing. It's going to be tied to artificial.
250K Vosh making it so hard to live in a cheaper area, drive to the city. It's just remarkable how much like solidarity breaks down when somebody else has more money than you. You realize everything you're saying right now could be used as a defense of third worldism, right? Maybe you make 40K a year, but there are communists who live in the global south who make like, you know, $400 a month or something. And they're like, oh, this American's complaining because they're struggling to make rent in their nice clean house with no rats and no cockroaches, and they get food reliably and safely from grocery stores that stock an effectively infinite amount of food, and they don't have to worry about crime in their neighborhood, and they don't have to worry about organized crime fleecing a portion of their paycheck. Okay, buddy. All right. And you want to go to social media and complain with your 40K a year job? I'm just saying, like, you look, the enemy is the bourgeoisie. Let's not like get cutting up everyone else, okay? If somebody's being silly with their money, you can call them out in that. I'm just saying, like, underlying all of that, have I ever let making fun of you guys for using DoorDash get in the way of me advocating for, like, a better system of living? You know? I'm just saying, you know, you rib people a little bit, but... Oh, I gotcha! Now, this little creature makes $0 a year and still enjoys a very high quality of living. So maybe what I'm saying is, you guys should become cats. And then you would be optimizing for your outcomes. Beep. Do the rat dance. Beep. Da, 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 da. Advosh, I agree. Hey, if you make 250K, good for you. If you're having problems, I'd love to have those problems. Well, yeah, I don't think anyone's arguing that it's not easier to make more money. I guess I just don't understand the point.
Intelligence. You can have manufacturing, you can have a new economy, but you got to train people in artificial intelligence en masse. Financial literacy should be a civil rights issue. AI literacy should be a civil rights issue.
But that's not really, I mean, you know, it's,
but
it's
that
not
goes,
what, he's right.
But that goes
right?
to my point of a comprehensive economic strategy to revitalize these cities that are struggling.
There are children that are going to go hungry because their parents can't afford to pay the higher prices on
AI literacy probably is like an important thing now. Like that's super annoying, but that's probably also true, right? Like just knowing what it is and how it's used or whatever. I don't know. Fox Business, how are you doing?
Now we see the Dow off maybe 1,300 points right before the opening bell. You're down 200 on the S&P. That's still 3.7%. On the Nasdaq, holding on to a 4.5% decline. Adam Johnson with me to take out the market for this hour. My fear, I got to say, my fear is that stocks are down and they stay down for a protracted period of time. Is that likely?
That's an understandable fear. I don't think that's actually how it's going to play out. And I'll tell you why, Stuart. Everyone is running the numbers right now, trying to figure out what this actually means. I've read several reports that estimate the impact of tariffs on inflation is only 0.2%, right? So it's not.
What? Could you share that math with me? 0.2%? Really? For our extremely import dependent economy with the highest tariffs ever in American history? Show your work to the teacher, please.
Not as though this suddenly creates another inflation runaway scenario. Not at all. I think the more apropos question that we all as money managers need to figure out is what's the impact to earnings? And intuitively, Stuart, I think it's somewhere between
Yep, this is Fox Business, all right.
2, 3, maybe 4%.
Down.
Yes.
Less than we expected.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. As ugly as these tariffs sound superficially, they're going to get spread around. In other words, U.S. companies that rely on imports will squeeze the overseas suppliers. So you got to help me out on price. They're going to say, how much can we pass along to our clients? Hey, what can we do in our business to lower our costs, to offset? So CFOs right now.
Dude, don't worry. 56% tariff on China isn't going to raise prices because firms over here in America and over in China are going to be like, well, what could we do to offset costs to bring it to nullify a 56% tariff? Reinstitute literal chattel slavery? That actually might not even do it. I'm not joking. These tariffs are significant enough in countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, China, etc., that they could probably implement chattel slavery and it would not drive the cost low enough that the consumer wouldn't feel an increase.
Are getting very creative. They're sharpening their pencils and they're trying to figure out how to bear the brunt of this. And I think that's ultimately why it's only a single-digit impact to earnings, and we will be able to get through that. The immediate reaction right now is emotional. Sell everything.
But if you've got any,
it's just emotional. It's just emotional. Okay, it's just if you're concerned about this, it's because basically you're being a woman, like you're kind of being a stupid cunt, like a hysterical bitch. If the biggest tariffs ever and the biggest stock market crash and everything's on fire, it's not on fire, you're just being emotional. It's not hot, you're just having a hot flash. Write this down, folks, okay? This is really useful stuff for when you get into a relationship.
On profits, and profits are the bottom line for stock prices. If you have any impact down 3 or 4% from what was expected, stock valuations will come down by that amount. So you're not going to go straight back up to new highs. That's not going to happen.
But guess what? We were already on the NASDAQ. I tend to look at the NASDAQ because I'm a growth investor. The NASDAQ was already down 16% yesterday. Given what...
Ask the brokers of the New York Stock Exchange if they're menstruating. That's how you know I'm a good feminist, because I would do that. If I was talking to a trader on the New York Stock Exchange, it's like a 65-year-old guy or something. And they get like upset. You should ask that.
We're showing people on the screen for futures.
Ralph Lauren down 10%. No! I've got to buy the dip. 16%. It's over. Oh no. Ralph Lauren's alive to see this. No. I even wore the shirt. No. That made in China shirt? Vietnam, I think. They make a lot of stuff in Vietnam. No, Ralph Lauren. I mean, unironically, considering how much of their stuff is made in Vietnam, it makes sense they would get massively hit by this. You know? Okay. The era of $125 t-shirts from Ralph Lauren is over. The era of $185 t-shirts from Ralph Lauren has just begun. We're paying samurai prices.
Down another 4, maybe 5%. So the NASDAQ has corrected 20%, which tells me that we've already
financing that lifestyle. Too late, your name's already orange.
Given what's happening. Stocks are already down 20%. They're not going to fall another 20%. Are we going to fall 40% because of this? No, we're not.
This is like a biblical level of hubris. I think he should keep talking like this because, you know, reality tends to come around to punish folks who speak with this kind of confidence.
Okay.
So people are going to run the numbers and figure out what the real impact is.
We will see what those numbers come out.
And I think those numbers are low single digits to earnings, Stuart, which is why I know I always say, oh, you always buy the dip. This is a lot more than a dip. But I do have new money coming in today, and I will be buying.
Today.
I love Fox Business, man. Genuinely way more fun to watch Fox Business than Fox News. Democrat senator makes bold claim. Bold, factually, empirically correct claim. Trump had strongest economy from Biden.
Ken Fisher joins me now. Ken,
that is a big red number.
Who are the winners and the losers of these tariffs? Who are they going to be?
So the big winner, and first, thanks for having me, Stuart, always. The big winner is everything that's outside of America. The fact of the matter is, you just look overnight, ever since the election, non-U.S. stocks have been doing better than U.S. stocks. You look overnight at the reaction, and of course, you never sell in a panic. But fact of the matter is, said simply, overseas markets have gone down pretty much consistently, less than American markets. Some of them are actually up.
Are you on board with the president's goal here? I'm not asking, this is not a political question, it's an economic question. Are you on board with his goal of creating a new golden age, and tariffs are his way of maneuvering us into that position? You on board with this?
So you asked two questions at once. One is about the goal, the other is about the tactics. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him think.
I've heard this.
And the fact of the matter is, as Forrest Gump would say, stupid is as stupid does.
Say your point.
This is not good. The question for stocks is whether it's worse than people think, better than people think, or about the same. The fact is, there's a bunch of ways this ball can bounce. I don't really.
Holy shit! This guy's like a master of not saying anything. We're a minute 19 in. He said literally nothing so far. He's offered us like 8 idioms, and he keeps, well, people think this, people think that, but the truth of the matter is that, well, if you think about it, there's a couple ways this could go, and one way this could go is one way, and the other way this could go is the other way.
They know which way it will, but most of them lead to, I mean, a lot of this is just impossible, Stuart. It can't happen.
Oh my God.
The government agency, the CBP, the subset of the CBP that collects tariffs, doesn't have the capacity to collect these tariffs. This is all going to just lead to negotiation, which may go this way, may go that way. Read what people are saying overseas.
Okay. I can't with this guy. This guy's killing me. I can't with this guy.
Let's get back to Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. Joining us now, the member of the House Financial Services Committee, Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. Congressman, how much money do you expect these tariffs to bring in? Peter Navarro says it's $600 billion a year.
It could be that figure, and I think we'll see as everything comes into full view. The key thing is, what are other nations going to do? Are they going to continue with their tariff policy that they've had against the United States?
I've heard people say this might make goods cheaper elsewhere due to companies wanting to import elsewhere. Your thoughts? Well, the question is, what would the impact be on the global economy if we just cut America out of it, basically? Like, what would the incentives look like? What would people's buying and selling patterns be? What would the adjustments look like if America's tariffs just make it bad to trade with us? And I don't think anyone really knows that, to be honest. What we're looking for is like, how much will, because the real power player here is China. How effectively will China leverage this to negotiate new trade deals with South Korea, Japan, and the European Union, you know? And they have been putting the moves on. They've been schmoovin', but no one really knows how this is going to play out, right?
For years, for decades, some of these countries, or are they going to begin lowering their tariffs and we'll lower ours?
Oh, look at
those
numbers.
We're not through the woods yet, are we? I mean, we've got to find out what their response is, and if they're going to respond in kind by either raising or lowering tariffs. I imagine that the negotiating pace is just intense, right?
I think we're just getting started here. And let's be perfectly clear, Stu. For decades, a lot of these countries have built their economies on the back of the American economy. We've given them free access to America's markets. They have been charging us massively to try to send anything to their countries. And the way I equate it is
This is partially true. Many of these economies are basically built on selling to the United States, right? Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, like we're huge trading partners with them. Obviously, they trade a lot with China as well. But yeah, as Nuts points out, like the fact that we have the global reserve currency is a huge part of this. Keep in mind, right? If you know, Vietnam sells to the United States, what do they get for their sale? Like if they, let's say they sell $100 billion worth of stuff to the United States. What currency do they get? Well, they get USD. They get the US dollar, right? Like, that's the currency we produce. That's the global reserve currency. So as a consequence, a lot of these countries are incentivized to trade with us because the currency they get from trading with us is really, really useful. The US dollar is a really good currency to hold. to have a reserve of. It's easily tradable. The reverse isn't necessarily true, right? Like if you're trading with forgive me, what is the currency used in Vietnam? If an American company sells goods over to Vietnam, it's the dong? Okay. If a US company sells products over to Vietnam, what currency do we get in exchange? Well, in all likelihood, we would get the dollar. Because Vietnam and Vietnamese companies hold on to USD, since it's the global reserve currency, they hold on to it to maintain their ability to trade with us without having to dip into the dong. If they did dip into the dong, they would probably get a worse rate because our companies, our country, don't want dong as much as they want the US dollar. Does this make sense? Does everyone understand this? So the fact that the USD is the global reserve currency gives us a massive import advantage. We can easily buy stuff from other countries like that because every country wants our currency. But if they want to buy from us, they are incentivized to give us our own currency, the US dollar, rather than theirs because theirs is less valuable to us. I only heard the US doesn't want dong. Well, yeah, it would be gay.
Corollary is United States basketball. Back in '92, when it was the Dream Team, it didn't matter what team you threw out there. We were going to dominate them, and it was going to really be ugly. Today's Dream Team, we still win the gold, but the games are harder. We got to compete. It's the same thing in the global economy. These nations have become not just developing nations, they are now strong economies, and so we have to have fair trade if you're going to have free trade. And so that's why the president's plan, I think, is going to work for the American people. And it's going to work for high.
The consequence of this could be like effectively a devaluing of the USD for a lot of these local markets. Obviously, the European Union uses the EU when trading internally, right? Like France, Germany, Spain, they all have the EU. They're trading with each other in the EU. There's no reason for them to use the global reserve currency when they're all using the same currency. But other countries that don't, sorry, the euro, not the EU. I said the EU, I mean the euro. But there are other countries that trade with the EU in the euro, even though the euro isn't the global reserve currency. Now, I don't know enough about the European Union's trade relationships to know for sure, but my guess would be that when the EU does dealings with, say, Morocco, are they on the euro? I said Morocco, Turkey. How about Turkey? My guess is that they would be using the euro rather than USD, because even though the US dollar is the global reserve currency, Turkey uses the lira. Morocco, I don't know what currency they use. I don't believe it's the euro. They would use the euro even though they're not in the Eurozone because that's their big trading partner. So with all of this being said, if it's harder to trade with America, don't you think it's more likely that countries in Southeast Asia are going to start using Chinese currency as their primary trading currency rather than USD? They already do to an extent, but don't you think it's the yuan? Yeah, it's likely that they would lean more into it because it's no longer as valuable to hold on to the US dollar as a reserve currency because they're not trading as much with the United States. Likewise with countries around the European, sort of orbit of trading, the zone around them. I feel like this would take years to occur. Oh yeah, this would take quite a while, but we are speedrunning the future right now. China does not want their money to become the reserve currency. There are consequences to having your currency be the global reserve currency, like the fact that the US dollar is so strong that everything in our country is insanely expensive. But what I'm essentially saying is that these tariffs could lead to not only more economic multipolarity, and not only to a weakening of the US dollar as the global reserve currency, but an increased likelihood that over time, our dealings with foreign countries aren't even going to be based in the dollar, which could potentially be pretty bad for us if we want our delicious Chinese sweet treats. That goes beyond the tariff. Now it's like not only are the trade deals more expensive to work through, but the underlying systems that that make it like preferable to trade with us, those are being unwoven too. You get me.
Paying jobs for the Americans over the long term.
Peter Navarro says, look, auto tariffs may bring in $100 billion
This stuff is
a
important.
year.
That's why I'm...
Now, that assumes that we keep buying imported cars. But are we going to do that in the face of a large tariff?
It's possible, but then also I think the other thing is, are you going to have more plants being manufactured here in the United States? Look, we have assembly plants for automobiles. It takes time to build that stuff up, but Americans are still going to buy cars. So that's why I'm saying a lot of this is going to take time to work our way through it, but it's going to put our economy on a much stronger footing.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing we do know is that subsidizing industry and then raising debt on the backs of the American people, that's a sugar high for an economy.
So maybe in the future there will be regional trade currency. There already is, practically speaking, but the more the world leans into that, the more we have this like double whammy of other countries don't want to readily trade with us, but also domestic production is incredibly expensive. As long as we hold the global reserve currency, shit made in America will always be really expensive. More expensive than other countries' own domestic production. Like, if you balance out all the external factors and focus exclusively on currency valuation, America-made shit in America being sold to Americans is a lot more expensive than German-made stuff made, you know, in Germany for Germans, so on and so forth. If you balance out everything, there is a consequence to being the global reserve currency. You're basically specializing in imports. Won't quality go down as well since the competitor is being priced out? Oh, the quality of a lot of goods that we get, that we have historically gotten from overseas that we will now be getting domestically, is going to plummet. It used to be the case that stuff made in China, you could expect it to be crap. That's just not true anymore. There are going to be a lot of like slapdash efforts at piecing stuff together here where they have to run the margins down into the ground in order to compete on price. Basically, everything's going to be worse for no reason and no one will benefit. Just give me one more.
Media chairman and editor-in-chief. Steve, where do you want to begin with this? Because those numbers, I bumped into Larry Kudlow on the way down here, and he said it was important to show how, my words, other nations...
Does having a global import economy and having the reserve currency go hand in hand? Yeah, they work pretty well with each other, yeah. Like, we didn't become the global reserve currency until well into the 20th century, and that was during the big globalization boom that allowed us to start benefiting from, you know, foreign manufacturing and imports and so on and so forth. This developed, like, they developed in parallel. So, yeah, it gives you favorable exchange rates, but the consequence is that it makes your dollar so powerful that, you know, to produce things domestically, you prices get ramped up substantially. It's the trade-off. Our economy is built on foreign manufacturing, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Really screw America, whether it's through tariffs, non-tariff barriers, and also currency depreciation, for him to illustrate that. But to hit back, for us to hit back via tariffs, this will be, in the short run, disruptive.
It will be, and the initial costs are roughly what he outlined today, $400 billion. We're still trying to get the details. He's already put on tariffs, raising about $150 billion. So you got revenues on paper coming in at $550, $600 billion. And some of those countries will be reducing their tariff rates.
1944 was when it became the reserve currency. Yeah, but that was because we were financing our allies during World War II. In practice, it didn't get adopted globally. Like, that was a gradual process over time. Like, obviously the Soviet bloc wasn't using the USD as a reserve currency, like, beyond World War II. It was or were they?
But I think this gives a spur to our friends in Congress. You've got $600 billion revenue raiser here. You have disruptions to supply chains, so raise it to $1 trillion. Add $1 trillion of extra tax cuts to the bills you have in the House and the Senate. You can get rid of the capital gains tax. You have massive cuts in the corporate tax and individual tax rates.
I love how this guy's like, we're going to, don't worry, maybe tariffs will make things more expensive, but we're going to reduce taxes to help the common man. For instance, we'll get rid of the capital gains tax and also the business tax. The income taxes. These evil these scum, these contemptuous, demonic ghouls, these monsters, man. Oh my God. Like, they can't even hide it. They can't even hide their contempt. They can't even, like, it's like, I feel like 20 years ago, what just happened right there, sorry, I should point this way, what just happened right there would have been a scandal on its own. Massive tariff hikes leading to cost of living increase to average American. Republican, financial expert, quote unquote, goes on Fox Business, says he'll lower costs for average consumer by lowering capital gains tax. What's that going to do for us, buddy? Yeah, me and my stock portfolio. Like, it would have been a thing back then. But they're so horny for all the damage they're about to do to ordinary people. They can't hold it in. In his head, he's just thinking, my portfolio, my taxes.
Remember, and then tell Congress, stop fooling around with the idea of raising the top income tax rate. They say that'll hit the rich. No, it hits.
Literally, look at this. It's question prompt. How will you help the average person? Lower capital gains, lower corporate taxes. Don't you dare raise the top marginal income tax bracket that only affects like people making $800,000 a year or more. Because trust me, that's going to you up or something. I don't know. Good night, y'all.
Small businesses and medium-sized businesses, which are so-called pass-through corporations. So if you're putting in these tariffs, you got to offset them and then some with not only a big beautiful tax bill, but a big beautiful tax bill on steroids.
Yay.
Double it, triple it.
On the tariff policy itself, Trump clearly deeply believes that this will be successful, and he lays out how. And I think watching him today, it feels a bit intuitive. If they do it to us, we do it to them. Fine. High risk, high reward, but there's a downside risk as well. What does a positive outcome look like for the U.S. here? What does a negative outcome look like?
Well, the positive outcome is that countries start to reduce their tariffs, and I think they're going to get in the innards of how those numbers were calculated, because when you take non-tariff barriers and currency and all of that kind of thing, it gets a little fuzzy. So I think other countries will respond, and hopefully big responses, and then it's essential to get that big tax cut bill through, because if that happens, then we can have better sailing ahead, positive sailing. That's why a lot of us thought, gee, why didn't they do the big tax bill first and then bring in these...
Is this Steve Forbes? I missed the prompt at the beginning. Yeah, this is Steve Forbes. That makes sense. That explains pretty much every article that you would see. It's on the screen right now. No, I know. Sometimes the ticker doesn't tell you the person who's speaking. Yeah, I'm just confirming. It's Mr. Forbes.
Tariffs, so you'd have a tailwind for the economy.
Perfect example, by the way, of the capital class falling in line with fascism, because Steve Forbes was a neocon through and through, Reagan and onward, and before. I mean, he's like 100 years old. He was a straight up, sensible businessman, little bespectacled. Oh, I'm just an old man looking after the health of the American economy. Now he's talking about stuff like, yeah, we want the big, beautiful bill on steroids, like a complete capitulation to the rhetoric and aims of fascism for a bill that will not help even him because he's so amped up. Basically, what I'm saying, he's evil and he's stupid. Like, it's very much the same, like we saw with the tariffs that Hoover put forward. The business class pushed him to do it. Economists told him not to. And businessmen who, despite their failings, were intelligent, like Henry Ford, or JP Morgan CEO at the time, whatever, told him not to. But the business class in general, just the business guys, they loved it. And this guy loves it. It doesn't matter how much harm it causes. His class interest dictates that he believe horrible, evil things.
Economy instead of a headwind. So it's about timing, it's about detail, and how countries quickly react, and what kind, given their own political situations in those countries, retaliations. They're talking about services they think they can hit the U.S. on. So hopefully this thing will now go to the negotiating table, and they'll be reducing rates, and we'll make these things just a brief thing, few weeks, rates are reduced, big beautiful tax bill, and we can breathe easily again,
Well,
not have to wait for the future.
But just a reminder, only about 12 to 14% of our economy is from imports. But you look at a Vietnam, 90% is from exports. So it goes.
Wow, that's crazy. You're telling me that Americans are more capable of buying Vietnamese textiles than Vietnamese citizens are capable of buying, like, American-built, I don't know, what the f*** do we even make here, man? American-built tractors? F-150s? Corn?
Goes to what President Trump has talked about is like these countries have a lot to lose and they have a lot to gain from talking to us and negotiating with us.
But that's why.
Negotiating with what? There are no tariffs, you dumb bitch. There are no tariffs for them to lower. The things you said are tariffs are just a percentage of the trade deficit versus their total imports. They don't have tariffs to lower. The thing you're asking of them is for them to buy more American-made products, and they can't because they can't afford them, because we're rich and they're poor. It's not possible. The trade imbalance is a property of our disparate wealth. There's no way they could even begin to rectify that. The only way to lower the imbalance would be for us to just arbitrarily stop buying cheap, high-quality textiles made from double RL factories that I want.
A country like Vietnam, I think you'll see some big reductions in terms of their rates.
And you can.
But the key thing is, though, what hasn't been, I don't think, factored in properly is what it does to supply chains. You've got a lot of small companies with small margins that are going to be hurt by this, put out of business. We saw with COVID, with the lockdowns, how disruptive that can be. So the quicker they can get this thing resolved and get those rates down around the world and get that big, beautiful tax cut bill that now must be doubled, then we'll come out of it and we'll have a better trading system.
But the exporters will likely eat at least half of these tariffs.
But they can't do that forever. And the thing on like the 25% tariff on autos, eventually, U.S.-made autos go up in price. It happens every time. If the ceiling goes up, everyone raises.
So talking about the tax.
He's actually salivating for those tax cuts. Literally, like he's literally like, and then at the end we need the big beautiful tax cut. We need double the big beautiful tax cut, which 0% tax on top marginal income. We should give more money, subsidies, free subsidies to the top marginal, no capital gains tax, no sir, no siree, and then everything will be fine for small businesses or whatever. Good night, y'all. He is actually horny for it. You can see in his face.
Tax bill, since you brought it up a few different times. There's all this sort of DC jargon. People's eyes glaze over. One bill, two bills, reconciliation, Senate parliamentarian.
I have a cattle prod under the desk. If you bring up parliamentarian, I zap you.
Okay,
in
well,
the badoobies.
You just did. My badoobies are now painting because of what she.
See, I told you, they are horny.
He just zapped it. This is behind the scenes at the bottom line. You never knew this until right now. But my question is more political and messaging-wise. Are you surprised, as I am, Steve, that Republicans in Congress, I know they keep saying, we're going to get it done, it's important. There doesn't seem to be, across the board, the type of urgency in warning the American people that if this doesn't happen, there's the biggest tax increase in history across the board. I feel like that is like banner headline number one.
And that should have been the theme on day one. There is a lack of urgency on that, and the typical family is going to have a $3,000, $4,000, $2,000, $4,000 tax increase. And most people, polls show this, most people don't know what's in store for them if this thing isn't done. And why aren't they proclaiming that every single day? View ads on it. And so far, the White House has not pushed this tax. Don't know what's in store.
He's like bouncing in his seat thinking about the tax cuts, man. It's sickening. You're already so wealthy. You're already literally John Forbes. Your name is John Forbes or something. I don't know. Scientists haven't figured it out yet. And he is like springing up and down in his seat at the thought of paying less.
Tax increase, and most people, polls show this, most people don't know what's in store for them if this thing isn't done. And why aren't they proclaiming that every single day? few ads on it. And so far, the White House has not pushed this potential tax cut the way they did in their first term. And so they got to get their act together and start pushing it big and make the point that you precisely made, a massive tax increase, not just the rich, but small and medium businesses and every...
Keep in mind that isn't the definition of a small business begin at 100 employees or something like that? Definition of small business. Is it 500? A small business is defined by firm revenue, ranging from 1 million to 40 million, and by employment from 100 to over 1,500 employees. So when he says small business, he's talking potentially about like what we would consider massive operations, enormous. So yeah, like just understand, we're not talking mom and pop businesses here, okay?
Single middle-class household in this country is going to get slammed and slammed hard if that bill doesn't get passed.
So what we got out of the Senate leadership today, who met with President Trump, the kind of behind the scenes. So the Senate has come out with its budget framework. It'll vote on it this week. It is step 3.
What are under 100 employees called? I don't know, but judging from how people with sole proprietorship have to pay both halves of the Social Security and Medicaid tax, I can tell you, America hates you if you are self-employed but don't have a big, beautiful business, okay? They hate your ass. They hate you, man. It's like an extra 7.5% I got on my ass.
Out of 8 and cobbling this thing together. It is the permanency of the existing Trump tax cuts. It's about $3.8 trillion, but then they set aside an additional like $1.5 trillion for more tax cuts, $5 trillion plus in tax cuts, and they didn't get into the nitty-gritty of spending cuts.
Well, the $3.8 trillion is just going to keep what we have today. Right. And only in Congress, only in Washington, would they call keeping the same tax rate a tax cut. Right. It's preposterous. So take that $3.8 trillion away and go to that one.
Lower the tax, lower the taxes, lower the. I'm gonna fucking come. Lower the taxes, please. Big beautiful bill times 2. Big beautiful bill in steroids. Please lower the taxes. Lower the top marginal tax rate. It's not. It's too high. It's too high. No capital gains tax. No capital gains tax. No business tax. No upper marginal income tax. I want to pay nothing. I want to pay less than nothing. Give me subsidies. I want subsidies.
$0.5 trillion. After what the president announced today, let's raise it to $2.5 trillion.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Why not? Why not, man? Bankrupt the country and kill every human on earth. Who cares? Who literally? Why not? We're like, it's the. How do you not be a Marxist when you see shit like this? Stuff like this is not born of like this person being like he's got a different type of brain than us. This is class difference at play. Like you are seeing the insane evil irrationality that is derived from the class difference. Like this, we are manifesting evil on earth, and we are doing it by giving a very small number of people a very different set of interests. And it's not even like they're running things competently. They're incompetent and self-destructive. We're just arbitrarily designating a certain class of people as having both virtually infinite power and no ability to use it to their or anyone's benefit.
Spending cuts, the Doge, the Muscovites, are making real progress in identifying things that have never been identified before, where all this money goes. It's a form of money laundering, where they do certain agencies, certain groups, and then it goes to other groups and individuals.
This guy runs Forbes magazine.
For the far left of the Democrat Party. So go through with what Musk is doing. He's going to be here till the end of May, and he's outlined what the cuts can be. So I don't worry about what the House and Senate say about cuts. It's going to be the Doge is doing it for you.
And you didn't
take what they do and run with it.
Steve, you didn't even say parliamentarian, so you've been spared. She's got the button under the desk. So
okay, you horny motherfucker. I get it. We all want to be tased in the balls by a woman on live TV. Okay, I understand. You don't need to keep bringing it up. In the badoobies, thank you. In the badoobies. Me, man. I'm. It's gonna take me a bit to recover from that one. Oh God. That was the most insane shit I've seen. Well, they're all like that. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are plenty of wealthy people and oligarchs who aren't like that, but like enough of them are like that it's a real problem. I'm so contemptuous of the moderate liberals, I'll say it, you know, they can't stop me from saying it. It's not illegal to say it. The capitalists who think that this system is actually elevating intelligent, competent people. Like, even if you go past the evil thing, I think a lot of people will still make the argument of like, oh, they're misguided, or like, you know, oh yeah, sure, maybe they're evil, but you can push back against them or whatever. And it's like, dude, this is this is an unforced error. Like, we don't need to have a system that's like this. We don't need to, like, Jesus Christ, man. I thought we figured this out with the aristocracy and the kings. Like, you can have well-educated aristocrats, but nothing's going to change the fact that the average aristocrat thinks the average peasant is made of dirt. Like, we figured this out over like 2,000 years of building contempt against the aristocracy. We figured this out a while ago. You can have educated kings. It's not about how educated they are. A righteous, just king, whether or not they're well-educated, they're definitely better educated than the average peasant. So is the average aristocrat. They're definitely more knowledgeable. It doesn't make a difference, man. They have a different set of interests. They will always think of themselves as being better than you. And the capital owners think that about you too. They think you're dirt people, just like the aristocrats. They think you're dirt people. They don't think you're real. They think that you're there because you deserve to be there. You know, the aristocrats thought that. You know that the people who literally were born into their positions thought they earned it and the peasants didn't. That was a very commonly held position, and you can see it in basically any writing at the time from any, it doesn't matter what country, it doesn't matter what aristocrat, they love that shit. Not just divine right of kings, because they did think that sometimes they thought that God chose the king or whatever, with the aristocrats too. They didn't believe in divine right for the aristocracy. In a lot of cases, it was literally just like you were born into privileged families, and they still thought there was something fundamentally different. And they believed it. It wasn't just a lie they told, propaganda to legitimize their power. They believed it, that they were innately better by merit than the peasants. Have we not learned from this? They're the same people. It's the same problem. Ugh. It's an unforced error, man. We don't need to do this. And yet when commoners very rarely entered the aristocracies, they were hated. Yeah, of course, because like if a commoner actually does do something phenomenal or really impressive, like a general, you know, and rises to the aristocracy, then they're like polluting the blood of the aristocracy or whatever. I don't know. Read Berserk. I don't know. Just whatever. I want to talk about something that's a little bit good news. And by good news, I mean the fall of the American Empire. Sorry, I've got a bunch of links up here, which are talking about, like, largely what you would expect. Chances of U.S. recession this year have risen sharply to 55% according to Prediction Market. Well, you can't trust prediction markets for anything. So I don't know how much stake you can necessarily put into that. But there has been some development on the whole, like, end of American hegemony thing. This is new. Scheinbaum says we will sign a new trade agreement with the European Union and work to further diversify our trade to other ex-US partners. Love that, by the way, ex-US partners. Like Scheinbaum is coming at it with like a very militantly anti-American based framing, which I support completely. I talked a little bit about the China, Japan, South Korea trade network, the dialogue that they're building up. And a lot of people have talked about how insane it is that this is happening at all. Like that you could, you know, three countries that hate each other this much are willing to work together to respond to what the United States is doing. It's it kind of defies belief, I guess. But I think that China, Japan, and South Korea agreed to jointly respond to U.S. tariffs, a social media account affiliated with Chinese state media said on Monday, an assertion so-called somewhat exaggerated, while Tokyo said there was no such discussion. Oh, I bet. It's politically advantageous for South Korea and for Japan to downplay the extent to which they're cooperating. China loves it, of course, because they're the dominant partner in this interaction. But they held, I mean, it is a fact that they had a trade conference in an unprecedented century of prosperity for everyone but the United States. I hope so. I mean, that'd be nice, right? It'd be nice if there were pockets of the world that stayed a little bit light in this cold darkness that's enveloping.
Korea held the first trade talks in 5 years on Sunday, amid concerns over U.S. President Donald Trump's import tariffs. The three Asian manufacturing giants agreed to, quote, closely cooperate for a comprehensive and high-level talks to improve free trade in the region. That's according to a statement released after the meeting. Trade ministers from the three nations met ahead of Trump's planned announcement on Wednesday of more tariffs in what he calls, quote, Liberation Day. Last week, Trump announced 25% import tariffs on cars and auto parts, a move that may hurt companies, especially Asian automakers, which are among the largest vehicle exporters to the U.S. Seoul, Beijing, and Tokyo are major U.S. trading partners, although they have been at loggerheads among themselves. Disagreement.
Trump is really unifying the world against us. I do hope we get that. I guess I don't really know, because some people are saying that this is all being done in an effort to like bring people to the table so we can extract more beneficial trade relationships with them. And I just don't know how true that is, because people right now, there's like a snippet of a conversation that Trump had that's going viral. It's from a conversation. Here, read the full transcript. Examining Trump's claims that tariffs will revitalize American manufacturing on PBS.org. Transcript. So this was an interview that he was conducting. We need a transformational change in our economy, and I think the administration is pursuing that. Paul Silman says part of that change, creating supply change in America for Americans. To which Donald Trump says, we shouldn't have supply chains. We should have them all in the United States. We have the companies to do it. In a sane world, this is the kind of statement that would get a president like CIA'd, you know? Just like teleported to the surface of the sun via technology that we don't understand and that your tax dollars paid for. It cost $14 billion to hit that button, but it was worth it. He sounds like an anarchist. Yeah, based? How will we, what if a person needs glasses? Well, you find a person who likes making glasses and ask them to make you glasses. It's like Judaism, man. It's. Can you guys toss me a line? Can you give me a thread? Can I get a life preserver thrown into the water? What do I do with this? What do I do with a statement like we shouldn't have supply chains? I'm like, pray? Yeah, maybe. Nothing, just assume he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, no. That's taken for granted. We know Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. But he has an ideological opposition to trade that goes beyond even any like broader oligarchical intention of, you know, pushing down the value of the US dollar or whatever. It goes beyond that. I mean, it's the Mad King. Just get me through these links, man. What are we looking at?
Look, I think it is a mistake to assume that we will have high tariffs in perpetuity. I don't think that would be good economic policy. I am not a fan of tariffs. And the announcement yesterday, look, time is going to tell in the next month or two or three what happens. If the result of yesterday's announcement is a lot of our trading partners across the globe dramatically reduce the tariffs they charge on U.S. goods and services, and the consequence of that is the U.S. government dramatically cuts the tariffs that were announced yesterday, that would be a great outcome. That would be good for America. If the result is...
Yeah, well, we'll see how much you actually break from the policy of the administration, okay? Oh, I saw this one. Or I saw maybe a version of this one.
And he's delivering. And you know what? I don't really care about my 401k today. You know what? Not that I can afford it, not that it isn't important, not that I'm not at a point in my life when I should be worried about my 401k, because I am. But this is what I believe. I believe in this man. And I believe that what we're seeing now with his bringing in $1 trillion in business and manufacturing and companies moving back to the United States.
It's freak ass shit, man. I wonder how the average Republican who tunes into the Five feels, like, I don't know, living paycheck to paycheck, and then this wealthy alcoholic is like, well, I'm not worried about it because I believe. They're probably fine with it because it's all a cult. I don't know. I shouldn't expect anything different. It's never been this much of a cult. Am I wrong for wishing these people end up starving in the street? These people as in the people on the Five? If the worst they had to deal with was being, if like the consequence of destroying an entire country and being like the you know, media wing of the Nazis is like you end up without a job at the end, like that, honest to God, that's pretty, I mean, I think, and I know, like, again, I know it's controversial. I think it should be a crime to destroy the whole country because you're bored. I don't know. You can steal a Twix bar and go to prison for it, but you can, destroy an entire country and you're fine. It's, you know what it is? It's white privilege, and they won't tell you that in school. It's female privilege. It's why they got all the life rafts on the Titanic, because of wokeness. I don't know about all that. Yeah, don't worry about it. Do you think the cultishness will get worse? Oh, yeah. Oh, it's gonna get really bad. Because for a long time now, the way Republicans have defended Trump and what Trump wants to do is by calling upon Americans and asking them to think about how things were better during Trump's term than they were during Biden's. Which they weren't, of course, but, they say it. With the pretense of the country's getting better gone, you have to turn to faith. It's gonna get more cult-like. Yeah, people don't typically leave cults because the prediction turned out to be wrong.
President Trump has declared economic independence with sweeping new tariffs on countries around the globe. The president billed it as Liberation Day yesterday and unveiled his reciprocal tariffs line by line on a chart that he carried out. He said it was too windy for the big backdrop they had. So the president says it is about putting America's first and creating a new golden age for American workers.
Yeah.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion,
get to Carolyn
American
Levitt.
history.
This is here to. What that says, analysts are on. Now, I know that the president has already said
Carolyn
that
Levitt
there's a
not
carve-out
featured?
right now for the pharmaceuticals, but a lot of the ingredients that go into the pharmaceuticals, as well as go into the packaging and manufacturing of the pharmaceuticals, are not part of that carve-out. And while the president is putting consequences
all day long.
All right, I thought this was the Carolyn Levitt bit. We're doing the whole we're doing a cut together. The Fox News always makes sure to intersperse their actual news with shit like this. Female fencer black-carded for taking knee against trans opponent. Fencer who took knee against trans opponent reveals she felt, quote, at a loss. Wow! Got on Fox News that day, huh? That day. Almost like it was planned. Well, they've done that before.
Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, sir, good morning to you. You have said that we don't know the consequences short term, and the long term, you think President Trump is right. You think long term we're dead financially. Here is the other side of all this from Democrats. Roll it.
These tariffs are dumb. They are also cruel, and they are stupid.
What is this going to do to American families?
Does that guy watch my streams?
And why is he doing it? To reduce taxes on the billionaires.
What we're seeing with Trump is not America first, but what's going to be is America alone.
Hey, Senator, we size it up for you. What do you think? What's the future hold?
Here's what I think. America is rich. We buy a lot of stuff. President Trump is saying that if you American business or you foreign businesses want to sell in America, then move your business here and hire American workers. That's a laudable goal, and I support it. It'll work long term. But as you mentioned, in the long term, we're dead. Short term matters. And the truth is, nobody knows what the impact of these tariffs are going to be, Bill. I listened to my friend on another network, Willie Geist, this morning, predict raging inflation. Now, I know Mr. Geist is smart and well-educated because he went to Vanderbilt. But that's just a wag. That's a wild-ass guess. China has huge trade barriers. They don't have inflation. They've got deflation. India has a lot of trade barriers. They don't have raging inflation. We'll know more in the next couple of months. If you want a surefire investment, go book as many rooms as you can at the Hay Adams Hotel across from the White House, because every foreign trade representative is going to be coming to America to meet with the Trump administration to try to negotiate. So it'll be 3 or 4 months before we know what the final tariffs are going to be. Last point, we're in uncharted waters. Tariffs are more art, in my opinion, than science.
Yeah?
Tariffs are like whiskey. A little whiskey under the right circumstances can be refreshing. Too much whiskey under the wrong circumstances, and you end up drunk as a goat. We just don't know right now.
It's so cool that these are like some of the most powerful people in the world. It's like literally like every person with power on their side, and also not on their side, but mostly on their side, is just not worthy of consideration. But also they're incredibly powerful.
But we'll know within the next 6 months. If it works, let's take a dozen.
Also, I'm sorry, I forgot to debunk the stupid thing that he said. The reason India and China don't suffer as much from the tariffs they impose on other countries is because they have domestic manufacturing bases. They used tariffs to protect their domestic manufacturing, which they could do because they have domestic manufacturing. Enormous amounts of it. Exponentially more than we have. We don't have that. Also, the average Chinese citizen doesn't buy nearly as much shit as we do because we're wealthy. So they're not as affected by a lower range of potential buying options than us, or as we are.
If it doesn't work, the president's going to have to recalibrate.
The other thing that's happening is you've got big decisions to make on Capitol Hill about the future of taxes in America, the spending plan, and that is going to go forward. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, was on that yesterday.
I would assume that this will not be in place in a month, 2 months, definitely not in the back half of the year. So I'm in the camp that this is the beginning of a big negotiation.
That actually was Carlos Gutierrez, a former secretary, saying something similar to you. What I wanted to play was this. This is Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, on GOP unity and tax cuts.
I've been spending
I was about to say, like, that. Did Scott Bessent grow a mustache and also change everything about his face?
substantial portion of my time up on the Hill with the House leaders, with the Senate leaders. And one of the most underreported stories in D.C. that I think is the remarkable unity that President Trump has gotten between the House and the Senate. We are moving ahead at a very brisk pace on this tax bill. I would expect the Senate to vote on it possibly on their portion of the reconciliation instructions, maybe even this weekend.
So, do you think that that's possible? And would that give the market some measure of stability, thinking that that could actually go through and be solid?
I just want healthcare, man. You, commie.
Number one, Secretary Bessent is very capable. I'm glad he's running Treasury. Number two, we will vote on the resolution this weekend in the Senate. It will pass. Number three, the main economic issue in America was, is, and remains high prices. The only way to get those high prices down is to cut spending, which puts less stimulus into the economy.
So, a recession. So that's a recession. Lowering demand, lowering consumption, that you're describing a recession.
It's to get rid of a lot of these rules and regulations to lower the prices of goods and services. And it's to pass a reconciliation bill, redesign a tax code that looks like somebody designed it on purpose in a way that it will stimulate growth and wages. That's what we need to be concentrating on, and that's what we're doing in the Senate.
So here's what the president said about that. The Senate plan has my complete and total support. Likewise, the House is working along the same lines. Every Republican House and Senate must unify. We need to pass it immediately. And now we know the Republicans in the House are up to 220 after this week's special election. Senator, thank you for your time.
Good Lord. Sorry, I know this is self-harm. I'm just running through it. We're almost done.
President Trump says he's going to make America wealthy again with his new tariff plan. It includes a baseline 10% tariff on all U.S. imports, as well as country-specific rates. The White House compared these side by side to what each country is charging the United States. Trump argued our nation has been getting ripped off by other nations. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance.
I think it's useful for all of us to step back and ask ourselves, what has the globalist economy gotten the United States of America? For 40 years.
The highest consumption rates per capita in the world, basically unlimited access to shit, whatever we want all the time. Like the height of the most wealthy, prosperous nation in the world. I don't know. Is it a trick question?
Years we have gone down that pathway. We've seen closing factories, we've seen rising inflation, we've seen the cost of housing so high that most Americans can't afford to buy a home right now.
Does that have to do with globalist trading policy? What is the relationship between these things? How does our domestic housing production have any influence? If any, it makes it easier to build houses because we get cheap lumber from Canada.
Now, President Trump is taking this economy in a different direction. He ran on that, he promised it, and now he's delivering.
Well, here's something
That's
that
great.
I'm watching closely today, and it isn't just today, but how long does this
Capella.
last? The Dow and other market indicators are being affected right now, as you can see. Retirees and those people who are about to need those 401ks that they worked so hard to build through the years are seeing this and may be very worried. So Fox Business's Charles Payne has some words about it. Watch this.
The last thing we want to focus on right now is the stock market. So there's a lot of culprits here, but we finally have woken up, and I think the American public, we've been making a huge mistake to watch the stock market. In fact, the administration says, listen, we want to, if you want to see where we're going, what we like to do.
It's crazy, man. Believe not the lies of the stock market. Turn your eyes away from it and do not be deceived by its numbers.
Particularly, remember, President Trump was elected first and foremost to bring inflation down. So they want to see the dollar come down a little bit. It's been too strong, and it's going to need to come down probably to fight off some of the.
Trump was elected to bring inflation down, comma, we need to bring the value of the dollar down. That's inflation. What? Literally, dude, they hate life so much. They hate life so much, dude. Literally, no breaks between, no stop between the sentences whatsoever. We want to bring inflation down, so we need to devalue the dollar, which is what inflation is. Yeah, exactly. Anathema to life itself. It goes beyond ideology. They're just demons, man. It's crazy.
The countermeasures. The stock market, I would not worry at all. In fact, I'd be a buyer of weakness, not a panic. Do not panic here. That's my message to them.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't panic. Do not be deceived by these false numbers. Okay? Look not at the stock market ticker.
America.
Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy.
Don't look at that. Dow Watch down 1,426.03. Don't look at it. Keep your eyes anywhere else on the screen.
Peter?
Harris, there are TVs all over the West Wing. Officials here know that the stock markets are crashing right now. But they claim that because so much money has been invested in the United States recently by companies hoping to avoid the impact of tariffs, that things could start to turn around very quickly.
That's not even remotely enough. Businesses preloading or like bulk buying orders beforehand so they can get them in before the tariffs. That's not.
People are going to start building factories right now. And that means all that construction work begins now. That starts to employ Americans today.
You know what people really want to do when all prices are rising? Build American factories. That's historically, that's like the best environment to build factories in America when the steel and lumber and stuff are much more expensive. They're laying the foundations.
You're going to see plants being built, factories rebuilding. All shifts are going to be running hot across.
See, it's like he knows he's bullshitting because, like, what the fuck is he even saying? Right? Like, what do you mean? What? Like, what companies? What factories? Using what materials? They're going to be they're going to still be importing shit. We can't meet all the needs for factory production domestically. They're still going to be importing shit. And the places that manufacture stuff domestically are still getting raw materials from other countries. How long can it possibly take to build a chip fab, though? 2-3 weeks? Yeah, probably even 2-3 weeks is too much. You basically just have to, like, buy one of those Home Depot corrugated iron sheds, and then you just need to, like, put the machines in or something. I don't know.
Us America now, you're going to see employment leaping starting today.
President Trump says the operation is over, the patient lived and is healing. The prognosis is that the patient will be far stronger, bigger, better, and more resilient than ever before. Make America great again. But some Democrats are struggling to see the sunny side in any of this.
I don't know from what he's liberating the American people. He ran on making America affordable again. There are millions of Americans who voted for Donald Trump believing he would actually reduce prices. He is demonstrably raising prices on virtually everything because we are part of a globally interconnected world. And
the gaslighting is insane. How could the election have turned out any differently when millions of Americans are being subjected to things like Trump won on the promise of lowering inflation? Therefore, we must now devalue the dollar, which is too strong. Or the other classic, you know, whatever the outcome of these tariffs may be, the main way to like coast through it, we just need to lower demand. Like nothing matters. Nothing matters, dude. And all these people are wealthy enough that no financial crash could affect them. They all benefit from it. They just get to scoop up devalued assets.
Economy.
If President Trump is going to talk further about this and about whether or not the declines in the markets are in line with what he expected, it'll be around 2 o'clock when he walks out to Marine One for a trip to Florida and a live golf event. Harris.
All right. Peter, thank you very much.
His supporters will always defend him unless something fundamental changes in this country or we start like enforcing the law and making it illegal to destroy the country for no reason. The vast majority of Trump supporters are going to blame any economic hardship on Democrats, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, blacks, Mexicans, Chinese, Antifa, George Soros, Jews, whatever. And Trump's plan will have always been the way, right? They will never, ever, 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 ever wake up. And the only way we could even hope to see some of them change their minds is the just flat removal of this anti-American bullshit from the networks. Like I'm sorry, like you just can't. I just don't think you should legally be allowed to be a billionaire and be like, I will now spend $1 billion creating a news network where people lie, and the lies will then lead to the, you know, public sentiment that I should get tax cuts, and then from the tax cuts you save $2 billion. I don't think that should be allowed. I don't think money is speech. I think speech is speech. I know, I'm sorry, very controversial. Send me to El Salvador for wanting America to be great for the people who live here.
Well, you saw it yesterday at 4 o'clock right here on the Fox News channel. President Trump unveiled global tariffs, which have, in the hours since, rattled markets all around the world as other countries are considering retaliation, perhaps.
And Doug Luzader joins us now with the latest. Hey, Doug.
Good morning. This is largely a 10% across the board global tariff, but it could be much higher.
Plus, you know, like 35% or something on China, Vietnam, Cambodia.
Depending on each country's trade barriers, and the president ran through some of those countries
line
by line. Here he is yesterday in the Rose Garden.
April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. We cannot pay the deficits of Canada, Mexico, and so many other countries. We used to do it. We can't do it anymore. We take care of countries all over the world. This will be indeed the golden age of America. It's coming back, and we're going to come back very strongly.
So here is where we stand on other tariffs right now. Aluminum, steel, cars, car parts, 25%, with more tariffs possible on goods ranging from pharmaceuticals to lumber. Reaction is pouring in from around the globe this morning.
Like the tariff chart, which looks like tornado warning zones or perhaps like endangered species. In effect, tariffs announced, threatened, unspecified copper, timber, and lumber tariffs. Sure, why not?
But the Treasury Secretary has a warning for other countries.
My advice to every country right now is do not retaliate. Sit back, take it in, let's see how it goes, because if you retaliate, there will be escalation. If you don't retaliate, this is the high water mark.
The high water mark. Now, Israel is offering to end tariffs on U.S. imports, and Canada is already looking for a deal.
We'd be willing to take those off tomorrow if he took all the tariffs off.
No tariffs were even placed on Canada. Canada wasn't. First of all, that's not the PM. That's Ontario, not Canada. That's not Mark Carney. And for two, Canada didn't have any tariffs placed on it. The auto tariffs? Oh, they're talking about the auto tariffs? Well, good luck getting those off, motherfucker, because Canada retaliated with their own retaliatory auto tariffs. So I don't think those are coming off.
We are not the problem, Andrew. Do you know the problem is? China's the problem. He knows, and Secretary Lutnick knows that we're willing to take these tariffs off like in the next minute if he said he's taking their tariffs off.
All right, that's...
Wait, how the is that him backing off? He was like, well, we'll remove retaliatory tariffs if you remove the tariffs you placed on us before we retaliated. How is that them backing down? The best case scenario here is you return to point A, like from before you started everything.
Canada, Mexico's president promising an announcement today on how she intends to respond, and everyone.
Oh, we know how that one went, by the way. Sheinbaum, here, hold on, let me pull it up, not in tweet form. Sheinbaum announcing a 1,000-year undying partnership between herself and the European Union in alliance against America. She said, strap me to a missile and fire me at Washington, D.C., if I remember correctly. Yeah, blood oath. Mexico celebrates preferential treatment under USMCA after U.S. tariffs announcement. Yeah, because Mexico also didn't have tariffs added. Where's the EU-Mexico agreement? There we go. The new EU-Mexico agreement. Hold on. Why the f did I have to go? Are they suppressing this information? I apologize for deferring to the conspiratorial, but wasn't there recently some stuff that the news media was very obviously just not covering? Remember? There was some information, I forget what it was, but we searched for it and it was literally like only accessible in foreign papers. I don't remember what it was though. The clean drinking water? Was it that? I don't know. Whatever. The point being that Sheinbaum responded by pledging a blood feud against the United States, et cetera, et cetera.
He's watching the markets right now ahead of this morning's opening bell. Back to you guys.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Doug.
Would not be a good day to retire. Doug, let me ask you this. When the numbers came out, because there was a briefing, an off-the-record briefing for a lot of reporters down in Washington yesterday, it sounded like that across-the-board thing was going to be it. It sounded like, okay, 10%, a baseline, but then all that other stuff was glommed on top of it, depending on the country. So this is much worse, much tougher on a lot of countries than Wall Street thought.
Yeah, and I think we saw Wall Street reflect those expectations yesterday. And, they're trying to determine exactly what the trade barriers are from each country, factoring in not just tariffs, but other things that they do to make it difficult for U.S. to export to those countries.
Indeed. All right.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, if they are heavily taxing us, why couldn't we heavily tax them? The only way to remedy this is for them to stop taxing us, and then we will stop.
That's great, lady. All right. That's about all I can handle on this for today. How are we 20 over? I'm going to lose my goddamn mind. I got to go. I got a thing. To everyone who donated, I'll read it tomorrow. I'll be here tomorrow. Yeah, okay, here we go. Latin Times article. Mexican president announces plan to counter Trump tariffs. 18 actions, including increased support for the food and energy industries. Okay, actual unironic media suppression and or racism that we have two main neighbors, Canada and Mexico, and Canadian news effortlessly makes its way into our country. This is a huge deal. I'm getting it from the Latin Times. You kidding me? Mexico is not a small nation. It's bigger than Canada. Is it? Like population-wise, right? Yeah. Yeah, Mexico's got 130 million people. Canada's got 40 million. They got more than 3 times the population of Canada.